Other,
Yeah, I can share the video with you.
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Okay. So coming back to, and I know that all of you had a fair bit of stint in the industry, so you're not golden-eyed like most uh, MBAs, fresh MBAs would be, because they would kind of come straight after college, do a 2-year MBA, and then kind of get roughed up in the industry. If that's the right word, correct? I think you already roughed up in the industry, and therefore your approach, your wisdom would help you understand what I'm saying. So 50% what I'm saying is curated, okay, or I'm going to present is curated, and 50% of what I'm going to say is from my experience, okay. um, and uh, and that's where I thought that the right blend of this discussion should be. um, so when Sandeep threw this whole topic to me that Parikshit, we would like to talk about platforms. The first thing which I hear, and I must correct that at the head of this conversation. How many of you think? What do you think of platform? Let me kind of engage all of you in the conversation right from the beginning. How many of you think? What do you think of platform? Just one or two words.
Yes, sir. So platform is where a buyer and seller interacts. It's a place to interact.
Okay. So if I crunch that, what does a platform mean?
A connector.
Good answer, but can you just crunch it into one or two words? What does a platform mean?
It's a
Platform is a
mediator.
market or a marketplace.
It's a marketplace. Okay. Good. Very close. Somebody else. You're getting there. Any more tries?
It's a
Place of doing
mediator.
business.
Sorry, come again. One again. Place of? I heard
Place of doing business.
place of doing business. Okay, close. Anybody else? Okay. Let
Sir,
me park it there
facilitator.
because we're short of time. Platform is a business model. Okay. So, contrary to this myth that people have, many people think platform is a tech evolution. Some people talk about it as a transaction, field, like some of you said, but it's actually a business model. Okay. Yeah. So people who said getting buyers and sellers together, yeah, you're right. But at the end of the day, that's a new and a digital business model. So if somebody told me, and this is what I kind of gathered and figured out over many discussions with investors, um, with a gentleman with whom I'll talk about, and somebody who probably has revolutionized the B2B, Dinesh Agarwal, who founded IndiaMart. Many of you would have read about him, and I'm going to talk about that case study in the large part of this conversation. Uh, so it is a business model. It's a very interesting business model. It's an evolving business model. So what we are really going to talk about, that what triggered this business model, okay, and what triggered this business model in the for the businesses and the consumers, and what is triggering and what is making the business model evolve and gain traction in the business to business arena. Okay, so that's going to be the kind of our conversation. But to set the context and to bring a little bit of a fun into this context, I thought I'll just take and while I was just getting ready for this conversation, um, uh, somebody asked me, over a call. I got into a business call, and he said, "अरे marketplace के लिए क्या बोलोगे? वो तो digital brokers है." So many actually in the industry who do not understand market and digital marketplaces have have a perspective of calling uh, any form of digital marketplace as digital brokers. And if you really understand their perspective, they're not wrong. So you have digital brokers for homes or rentals. You have digital brokers for making marriages. You have digital brokers for buying and selling. You have digital brokers for dating. You have digital brokers with, broking between a good doctor and a patient. correct? So if you really look at the emergence of this whole marketplace or platform as a marketplace, it is connecting one with the other, the buyer with the seller or the buyer with the service provider. So digital broking, yeah, may not be the right way to describe a very serious business model, but on a flip side of it, that is what it does. Now, what led to the emergence, and I'm going to toggle these presentations very quickly. Um, uh, the emergence of this platform business or platform business model was at the back of a philosophy which I call it live, work, and play. Okay, so the millennials started believing that they need to have a kind of a work-life balance, and this is a very cliched word that many of you would have heard. That I need a work-life balance. So what they meant, or what they mean, or what they really want to achieve through that philosophy is that I would allocate equal amount of time with for my personal life and something which is not personal, which I do for a living or for a business or for some other form of commercial engagement. And if you really go to the genesis of the business to business and business to consumer marketplaces, the whole hypothesis was predicated by the fact that it was delivering significant convenience for the seller and for the buyer. So live, work, and play, if you remember, would be the right trigger for why commerce and electronic commerce is uh, really, and I think the COVID experience is probably the best experience that we can talk about. Can I really go to my slides, Sandeep? If you're
Yeah,
still
it's there. Are you
Yeah, I'm
able
going to
to
get,
see the slide?
I'm going to jump straight into the slide and then probably go and do this kind of a discussion somewhere in the
So,
middle. These
so
slides,
okay.
these
I think
slides,
we can also start from here. Genesis of online marketplace.
yeah.
This
I'm going to quickly go through this and probably, and for all of you, the slides are for you. So Sandeep is going to share it. So I'm not going to go line by line. I'm going to take the key essence of each of those pages. And once I have covered that, if there are any questions, I'll be more than glad to discuss at the end of the session. And in case you have any further questions upon reading this document, you're most welcome to connect with me through Sandeep. And Sandeep would direct you to me, and I'll be happy to answer. So, as Sandeep, kind of puts up the presentation this evening is kind of split into these 7 sections, except the case study. And this is going to be the most interesting, guys, I can tell you. I worked with Mr. Agarwal in the capacity of his advisor for about a year and a half while India Mart was being built. And I'm not going to get into why I did that and why he chose me, but I'm going to say certain things about India Mart which you'll not get in Wikipedia or which you'll not get anywhere else. Now, coming to the point of the presentation, so I'm going to go back to a little bit of a history of emergence of platform-based marketplaces, what this platform-based marketplaces are all about. Can you all see the slides, guys?
No,
No, sir.
sir. It's not visible, sir.
You're not able to see the slide.
No, sir. No, sir.
So you're not sharing it, sir.
Okay. So is it now? It is.
It's
Are you
loading.
able to?
loading.
It's
sir.
loading.
Okay. Now has it come or not?
No, Sandeep, we can't see it.
It's loading, sir. It's loading.
Oh my God. Maybe my internet is gone. Just 1 second.
Okay, so while Sandeep reloads their presentation, so the presentation is split into 7 sections. I'm going to talk about a bit about the emergence of marketplace, digital marketplace. What happened? What triggered? Who were the early adopters? Which were the companies? Etc. Etc. So that you have a little bit of a history to this conversation. Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. I'm going to. It's gone again.
No, I'm just. I think it will be now okay. Is it okay now, Ashish?
No, sir, it's gone. Now, yes, now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Now, yeah, we can go ahead. I think now it will be okay.
Thank you, Sandeep. The second part is that how do you really distinguish a B2B and B2C platform from from a construct point of view, from a business model point of view, from what is unique in each of these kind of platforms, etc., so that you have an ability to dissect and probably understand how do one distinguish this and what really separates one from the other. The third thing is going to talk about specific to our conversation, that what are the different models that one sees still today. I mean, there's going to be more evolution, as I said earlier, in the B2B platform space. What are the models that are currently in vogue or had been there and has been kind of further evolved? So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that why the B2B side of the platform business didn't really, or marketplace, didn't really keep pace, other than Alibaba, which is an kind of a huge exception. And we talk about that as well. And why didn't it keep up to the pace as opposed to the B2C platforms that one knows, whether it's in US, whether it's in Europe, or in any other country, in other parts of Asia. And so we're going to talk about what are those challenges. And therefore, what Sandeep also helped me understand, that for all of you, you'd like to know that what are those challenges and how those challenges these B2B marketplace players are trying to circumvent. So what are the things that they're trying to do to make the B2B platforms as popular, as easy or as seamless as the B2C platform, and what are the triggers or what are the levers for higher adoption in the B2B marketplace. So we're going to talk again through that. Primarily strategies for better adoption and acceptance. I'm going to thereafter pause and talk about this whole IndiaMart case study, because that is a living example of what you guys should take away from this session. That what made IndiaMart stand out, and what do I do? I'm not going to talk much about Udaan, but many of you know about Udaan. That what is the difference between IndiaMart and Udaan? Udaan's let's say about 4 years old, and IndiaMart is a 27-year-old company. So what are the kind of differences that one sees, especially from a third party like me? And I'm not going to be biased because I know Mr. Agarwal. So the last part of this conversation is going to be that what kind of platform provider-led strategies are coming up, so that you would see this digital broker community really transgressing in all sides of business. So there are certain businesses which are still not in the digital marketplace, okay, or in the on the market. So that's the broad content. Huge topic. As I said, I may not be able to do justice. I'm going to flip through. Questions are welcome. Yeah, let's see how we do on time. Sandeep, if you could help me in the next slide. Yeah, thanks. So I think the emergence of platforms started the slide before Sandeep. The emergence of the platform, one slide before Sandeep. Yeah, the emergence of the platform and platform-based marketplaces started way back in the 90s. And there's a slide which will help you, so you can have a kind of a quiz contest for your college guys or your future employers. And it took me a little while to find that what really happened in this so-called B2C and B2B marketplace. So the first official B2C and the B2B marketplace happened way back in the 90s. And these were for used computers. And I think very interesting, and this should be interesting for all of you, it was for me, that the first marketplace was set up in the Stanford University to transact a pack of marijuana. Okay, do you understand that? And they started envisioning marijuana as a currency to transact. So a little cryptic in terms of how they did it, but but net, that's how it all started. This is what one read about. So the emergence of online marketplace made products and services for the buyer and the seller cost efficient because it was cutting down a distribution cost, it was cutting down a transaction cost, it was cutting down a logistic cost, and it was also cutting down for consumer products advertising cost. So if you really see, if not completely but substantially, but having so there were all pluses, and that's where I think and I said the Gen X, the Gen Z, who would love their life to be live, work, and play, they said, why do I have to go to a store? Why do I have to go to a supermarket? Why do I have to go to a place to go and pick up what I want to buy? And if there's a platform that they can deliver me, why shouldn't I be looking for them? So online marketplaces originated to get buyers and suppliers on one platform. Online marketplaces could be for one company or a set of companies. So when it was for a set of companies, we would call it a marketplace. Once it is for one company, and I think Sandeep would have taught you, and you guys would have got taught in this about the omni-channel and the multi-channel marketing networks. So multi-channel, most B2B businesses still follow or are trying to migrate to omni-channel, but most would be in that, especially in India, in that multi-channel kind of mode. Now, in that multi-channel mode, companies as large as GE started to use digital platforms or digital marketplace to become omni-channel. Correct, and that including the fact that they rehashed their websites, etc., etc. So the marketplace was actually a marketing-led ploy to make products reach a wider audience with lesser cost, and most importantly, at a level of convenience which was till then never experienced. Let's move. There are some snippets which you can read at your leisure. So one of the important points which you guys would also understand that in B2C marketplace, one of the important elements was that somebody was standing guarantee to the quality and the transaction that was being carried. So it's not that you went to a store, you bought something, you opened the lid, and you figured out that the thing is gone, or it's gone, it's not good for consumption, or the quality was not good, or whatever. So here you had somebody as an administrator ensuring that the quality of the product sold, ensuring that in case the quality of the product bought was inferior, that there was a replacement process. So in an online market environment, both B2B and B2C, the advantage of the buyer was that there would be somebody like an arbitrator. Somebody would arbitrate on the value of the goods being sold. That means there'll be a legitimacy on the pricing, there'll be a legitimacy on the quality, and most importantly, there would be commitments as you typically see in a B2B environment. So a contract is a commercial document, which is a commitment between a buyer and a seller. So in a marketplace, especially a digital marketplace, the administrator, which is the marketplace administrator, whether it's it's a marketplace or a multi-channel platform, you would figure out that there's somebody who's actually looking after your interest in that transaction. And that for consumers and that now for businesses are extremely positive and compelling reasons for people to gradually start looking at. And I'll tell you that what is stopping that. Now, most of these marketplaces, whether it's a multi-channel, partly omni-channel, and marketplace, actually started charging, if you may be knowing, actually on the garb of that charge. How many of you use Amazon? I'm sure all of you do, right? Right? All of you do, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
Yes.
you'll find very, very interestingly, Amazon charges something even today, though they claim that we don't charge anything. So there's a charge called Amazon Prime charges, right? Which gets you faster delivery. So yeah, it could be a very small amount of money, but they do charge, correct? So the element of charging the consumers for the convenience that they buy is still prevalent, correct? Some are avoiding it. Like Google Map doesn't charge for all the Google services, but someday they will charge. And once they start charging, you can't get away from it. Anyway, so the genesis of marketplace, if I sum up, has three, were led by three triggers. Trigger one, consumer choices and preferences. Trigger two, cutting intermediate cost structure, thereby making the product available at the most cost efficient way from the supplier standpoint and from also the buyer standpoint. Third is somebody standing as an arbitrator to the quality of the transaction, commitment made by the seller, and a timely delivery. Last but not the least, it also allowed organizations who were selling to cut down their distribution and marketing costs appreciably because they had a marketplace, they had a set of customers and consumers who were available on this platform right from the first day, which traditionally for a young company or for a company which has never come to a digital platform probably would not have experienced. So that sums up the genesis of why marketplaces started happening, what were the triggers, and what led to, therefore, a kind of a revolution in the business world. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the emergence, guys, of the B2C marketplace. And if you really see, 1990, 1995, and 1997, the early 90s or the mid 90s, were tectonic shift of markets moving from what we call the modern digital marketplace. So starting with Amazon and eBay, which is in 1995, and 1990, the whole the World Wide Web becoming very popular outside the shores of America and getting global acceptance, and from a reliability standpoint, everybody accepting the www to be a reliable way to communicate. All that were the initial push and the trigger for e-commerce, especially e-commerce in the consumer space. Let's move. Now, I call it, I have given it this name, and some of my colleagues love it, and I'm not ashamed of calling it. I think the new generation is looking for platforms which they call convenience as a service. So I wouldn't like to call it e-commerce anymore. I would like to call it CaaS. Okay. So if you're wanting to buy convenience as a service for any product, any service, or any type of solution, whether it's a digital solution, whether it's a software solution, whether it's a capital good, or whether it's a consumer good, or it's some other kinds of services. If you want convenience, that is what consumers are paying for and opting for. So CaaS is going to be the emergence of the next level of e-commerce, as I see. Somebody can steal this name, I have no problems, or somebody could recoin it. But convenience would be now in a platform form going forward, therefore giving far more kind of amplitude and elbow room for consumers to get their field day. What is again going to really get to this kind of regime of convenience as a service? I see three things playing out. I think the mobile technology, okay, computing in your hand. So we moved from, at least I have moved from a generation of baby boomers in the early 60s, seeing photocopier machines to typewriters, electronic typewriters to big bulky desktops, etc., and then the various kinds of laptops and the iPads of the modern world. Now, what I'm seeing is the computing processing capabilities are going up and the computing devices are becoming smaller. The classical example is that today you have a computing power of a 1990, late 1990, early 2000 desktop. Some of your high high-end smartphones have similar computing power, if not more. Now, what is that meaning? That is meaning that convenience. What is computing? Computing is nothing but convenience. The source of computing is convenience. So you are getting computing in your palm top or in your hand, and that is going to be the biggest revolution of what I call convenience as a service. So you can relate where I'm really coming from. I'm saying that commerce is not going to be called commerce. Some of you read economics would know that the last decade or a little over the last 2 decades were called experience economy. Okay, from the industrial revolution, which was manufacturing economy. So experience economy is moving to convenience economy. So anything which is convenient would gain traction, and technology is going to facilitate that traction of convenience as a service. Now, to really stitch this up, you will see that the fintech industry is playing a huge role. Okay. I remember when we started using Zomato, we used to pay the guy upon delivery, right? Many of us did that, right? Till a point, the guy actually takes his tip as well from just 2 clicks on a UPI Pay Play Store, correct? So you just make 2 clicks. 1 click to tell your bank that I want to make this payment, and the other click to complete your transaction, correct? And in that, the cost of the food, the GST, the tip to the chap who's carrying your consignment is all done, right? So fintech is also using technology and mobile technology here, more importantly, to drive convenience as a service, which is again, I repeated, the cost of reputation, the future of B2C and B2B market. Important to note here, very, very important. One of the human behaviors, you've studied a bit of business psychology and human psychology as a part of your study, I'm sure, right? Sandeep, did they study that in their curriculum?
Yeah, in the first year they have organization behavior. Santosh, you have those type of courses, no? Organization behavior and others.
We've done that, sir. Yes.
OB1 and OB2, I think, micro and macro. So
We had only organizational behavior as a whole, sir. We did not have subparts.
Okay, so they have some part of that.
Some part. So, but because I teach in some of the, or go and do this in some of the other colleges, they teach. But anyway, that's not the point. One of the predicating buying behavior, and because you guys come from an industry experience, you'll know, one of the predicating buying behavior is triggered by a fundamental human psychology. And that fundamental human psychology is, I will trade, I will buy when I feel safe. And when I feel that what I'm buying is equal to my expectation. So there are 3 things that trigger a buying. I feel that I'm buying from a safe source. I feel that the whole transaction is safe. And I feel that the product or the service that I'm buying is meeting my expectation. And last but not the least, that the product and the service meets my budget or the cost line or the cost point that I'm really looking at. Broadly, now there could be some peripheral points, correct? Now, therefore, transparency in marketplaces, electronic marketplaces, digital marketplaces are brought in by the legal framework. Please understand, today you can buy. I remember Flipkarts and the Amazons, and I had senior folks in Flipkart who are my friends or from my college, etc. They said, what's bothering us is our return and policy. So most of the people, especially the younger ones, they didn't like the product and they were returning it in 48 hours and 72 hours. It was becoming very difficult for Amazon and Flipkart in the initial run to really manage their, customer dissatisfaction levels. So what they did is they brought some rules of the game at the platform end. They said we would onboard safe, and I'm going to talk about IndiaMart as to how they do it. And it's some real interesting high-end technology making that happen. Okay, that we would onboard SKUs, as they call it, who are reliable and whose past track records I've been able to establish. Therefore, my consumers get products and services from reliable sources, and the whole sense of transparency, reliability around the transaction is established. So you'll find that the Amazons of the world and Flipkarts do handle returns, but the percentage has become a far smaller percentage than what it used to be 3-4 years back when they started their journey. So transparency and legal framework and somebody acting as an arbitrator, matching the interest of the seller and the buyer is also one of the driving factors which is propelling B2C and B2B marketplaces. And just to give you a set of example to end this slide, 100,000 registered B2C e-commerce companies. Can you believe it, for a country which is what, 1/5 of our size in terms of population, right? 100,000, and I'm sure, not if not all, but many of them are making money. That means there's a space, and we'll come to those sector marketplaces. That within a larger marketplace, how can you have niche sector markets? Correct? And all of you are men, so Tinder is a market for dating. Correct? So they've chosen a very smart market, right? But it is a market and they have global popularity. And we're going to talk about those sectors, how the markets have emerged into macro and micro sectors. Okay, Sandeep, let's move. I'm sorry to keep you busy.
Yeah, that's okay.
So the genesis of B2B marketplaces primarily took place when companies started to take help of platform to scale. So you must have heard these concepts of design for scale. No company in the traditional world which had to open one office in each city to sell their product, whether it's a capital good or a service or a combination of both, those days are gone. So smart companies are not making offices all over the country, yes, especially in a big country. So they're using digital platforms and this established route to market to really go and sell their products and service by taking either the India Marts or the Urans of the world or their own e-commerce platform. The B2B marketplaces that we see now in India, I'm talking India, I'm not talking America, are for companies selling their products and services. And only recently, you find B2B products and service market has started to expand. I mean, just giving you an example, all of you use laptop computers, right? The best example of B2B platform is Dell, right? You would see that company, unlike the HPs and the Lenovo, they're incidentally all following the same route, but it was Dell who struck to the fact that we sell our products. If you want to buy it from us, we sell it on a platform, correct? You could get a Dell, and you'll see it even today, because I bought one a couple of months back. Dell sells different products on their platform and on the retail side. So you'll rarely see the models that you like on the Dell's catalog. There are some which are exclusively sold by Dell on the platform, and there are the others which are sold by the retailers. So many companies are taking this route. Okay, another company which has popularized their own platform-based selling is Cisco. Okay, you'd find that Cisco sells through retailers, but Cisco has some core products which is sell only on their platform. So this is a new trend that one is seeing very, very progressively. Initially, the B2B platforms were low volume and low value and high volume. The India Mart story will tell us about that. So India Mart initially was struggling with ticket size. They were having high volume, but ticket sizes were small. And we'll talk in their case study how they've started to really get out of that rut, how they've started to get a balance between volume and value. Okay, and we'll talk what are they doing to do that. And these platforms, from a Genesis point of view, are benefiting users in a big way. One of the biggest things that I would like to talk about is delivery visibility. Okay, now, and the best example, though it's in a consumer space, is Zomato. Okay, to a point where you could know, I mean, we have been used to ordering food at home for many, many years, right? Much before Zomato came here. The restaurant would deliver, but rarely would a restaurant keep up to their commitment of what time they committed to you, right? So you'd get the food, but you'll get the food half an hour, 40 minutes, hour later. And many times you will be disgusted, or you would have made a couple of calls to the delivery to the restaurant. Zomato brought in that discipline that if you order, they would commit you that your food's arriving in 45 minutes. Yeah, there were glitches in the first half of Zomato's journey, Swiggy's journey, correct? But what they mastered over a period of time, and that's where I have checked myself. I was not a great fan of Zomato, but on the last 1 year, especially because of COVID, when I started ordering, I started to see, and I did my little notes, that what was the committed delivery to the actual delivery. And believe me, this is based on my own experience, and I found that they were above 90% on time, which is a great delivery record. Now, these platforms are therefore allowing transparency, reliability, and delivery on time, which for any kind of B2B transaction globally continues to be one of the pain points between a supplier and a buyer. So you'll find the biggest company letting down their customers on delivery, commissioning time, installation time, or the project completion time. So therefore, in project management, there is a very standard terminology which is yours called project cost and time creep. Now, where did it come from? Means somebody changed the spec or somebody couldn't deliver, or a combination of both, correct? Similarly, in a transaction, especially in the B2B, this creep of time, creates a huge problem in terms of reliability and the kind of confidence that the buyer has about the supplier, which marketplaces, which these digital platforms are allowing to diminish progressively. Sandeep, let's move. Some statistics, an important statistics, because I personally track Gartner. As you know, Gartner is the bellwether of the technology industry. And I love Gartner because Gartner's predictions in the last 5 years that I've been working with them, I'm a subscriber in some of their platforms. I find that they have given very, very near accurate projections and forecasts. Gartner here commits or forecasts that by 2023, and this is global trade, this is not India, 70% of the enterprise marketplaces would support B2B. Now you may say, Parikshit, what is this? Because B2B after Corona, after this pandemic, is going to do a significant catch-up in their whole digital storyboard, in their whole digital go-to-market strategy, in their whole digital multi or omni-channel market plans. Correct? So the catching up now, you will find the emergence of many more Urans, many more India Marts, and many more Alibabas in the world, catering largely to small and medium and sometimes large businesses who would use them as opposed to using their market and sales network to reach their customers and deliver their goods and services, right? And therefore, I mean, if you see the numbers, $3.6 trillion up from 680 billion into 2018 is a significant jump, given the fact that you've had 2 years of very, very demoralizing trade and commerce because of the pandemic, right? Across the world. I mean, this is not India. So we see some significant numbers. We see some significant traction. So what I'm trying to explain or probably convey in this slide, that there is, while B2C will continue to grow, B2C has a lot more ground to cover, but the rate of change of B2B marketplace or B2B e-commerce solutions are going to be significantly faster clip than B2C in the coming years. Sandeep, let's move. So if you really see that in the B2B, and this is actually underpinning what I said in the earlier slide. In the last 5 years, India has added 2,300 B2B startups. Okay, and these are top trends which are driving marketplaces. Okay, So you have the Udans, the Ninja Cards, the India Mart, the Moglix, I mean, you name it. And there are many, many more. Okay, I sit in the board of Angel Fund, and every week we get 3 new B2B or B2C combination of startup funding applications. Correct. So I see significant B2B growth momentum in startups in India. And I also see some significant innovation, which will also change the trajectory of B2B marketplace and B2B e-commerce in this country or probably around the world. And this is going to have I call it a recoil impact. What is the recoil impact? While investors are going to put more money on digital companies, digital organizations, it's going to actually tie up because these digital platforms don't manufacture anything of their own, correct? Or even if they do, they manufacture only a percentage of that what they sell. So they are going to help some of these smaller MSMEs, manufacturing services, to flourish. Okay, so I give you an example. A particular kind of a pickle, which I loved while I traveled to Kerala many years back. I can get it sitting here in Gurgaon. Correct. I couldn't have thought about it a couple of years back, but I can get it. Similarly, my friend runs a tooling company. So he is getting his tooling vendor from Coimbatore deliver in 72 hours some of the spares which he couldn't get for 7 days earlier. Correct? Now, these are the changes. So what's happening is that digital platforms are integrating manufacturers, buyers, and sellers so that the markets which this Coimbatore, let's say, machine tool company could never think of, or this pickle manufacturer from Kerala could never expect a consumer in Gurgaon, they're able to reach. Can you understand the power? And the consumer is buying it at a reasonable price and not having to pay a premium, right? So that's the kind of, I call it catalytic impact on the whole economy, which digital platforms will bring about. Yeah, Sandeep, let's move. Okay, so what are the current trends? This is an interesting slide, and I'm going to talk about it in not very much because I think we are not doing good time, not at all doing good time. So I think on the B2B side, you are going to get a significant amount of technology step up because most of the B2B platforms are talking about serious application program integration, or what we call API integration, correct? Which means what? Which means that I would have, let's say, for example, you are a PCB supplier and I make mobile phones, correct? I would be able to see the production planning of your, let's say, a PCB to the point of testing, and I can vertically and horizontally plan my production for every day because I know that what time your PCB is gone onto your manufacturing line by the time it's tested. So I am actually able to do what we used to read in textbook called just-in-time inventory. Correct? So therefore, this API from your manufacturing line into my production planning and distribution line is giving me a seamless connect to understand that how would you support that. Let's say Raksha Bandhan is there. I'm going to have a significant rise in people buying mobile phones to give to their sister, right? So how would you help me ramp that up? Now, earlier you would say, oh, I'll do it for you. Okay, manufacturers will let down the end users or the intermediaries. Correct. Now you can actually see it, that where it's coming from, and is his commitment backed up with actions. Correct. So API integration driving the way, horizontal and vertical integration between supplier, platform, and buyers are going to happen. A number of B2B companies are developing their own e-commerce platforms. I do not know whether you were taught about progressive web apps. Any ideas of PWAs? Anybody knows? Any idea? Oh, then I'm not going to spend much time. So progressive web apps are something extremely, extremely emerging. Now, what is progressive web app? So progressive web app in one level ties up the mobile apps, the websites, and what we call in the computing or the software industry, your user experience. Okay. So you can provide an experience, you can access the website, you can order, you could send some feedback, etc. from any kind of platform. That's one. The progressive web apps are also facilitating from multiple platforms a transaction, which means it's backed up with, let's say, a fintech solution or a payment solution. And on the other side, the backend is integrated with your manufacturing line. So every day you get to know that there are 200 visitors who came, 20 gave me an order, 30 of them already paid for, 10 of them already paid for it, 10 will pay upon delivery. So the manufacturing line gets a complete information every day from their website, from the consumer experience or the inputs that they get, that how is their production planning or how their goods would be need to be manufactured and therefore delivered. The other emerging trends that one is reading about and one is seeing also is that fintech, insurance, logistics, IT, digital services are leading the pack. Okay. Now, one would know, I mean, most of you are very young, but I can tell you all my 30 years of my life, or I wouldn't say, yeah, 30 years, 5 years, I didn't have an insurance policy when I started my work. It was my insurance agent who used to follow me up and say, ki, sir, aapka premium due hai. Okay. Much later, only last 10 years, I used to get an email prompt, correct? Today, people like Paisabazaar or many other companies which manages various kinds of insurance products actually manage your entire ecosystem. It tells you 2 months in advance that your insurance premium is coming to an end. And what therefore, given your behavior of use of insurance products, would be the most optimum solution that you can look at, right? So it is kind of taken away that whole community in this country. I'm not saying completely, but to a large extent, at least in the metro cities, of the insurance agents, either from LIC or from the other companies, who would be a connect between you as a consumer and the insurance company as a seller. Okay, so we see that these kind of products are in the B2B space are going to be significantly gaining traction and more reliable solutions are emerging. We also see that niche B2B online marketplaces are going to emerge, especially after the lockdown, and would continue to appeal new sectors. Let me explain some sectors which I foresee as driving the next level of growth. Already some of you know that commodity selling happens on platforms. How many of you know, correct? So most commodities get sold now through platforms. I mean, if not completely, but to a fair extent. The next level of, kind of platform-led marketplace that one is looking at is in the space of technology. I'll explain to you why. You don't still buy, the world still doesn't buy software from any commerce platform, correct? If you go to Amazon, what happens is you get to know that your Microsoft 360, the latest version, with a pack and with what all, the tech spec, how much would it cost? That's all you get. Do you get an experience? You don't. Do you get to know live that on the version that you are running on your computer, whether that version is going to be compatible? You don't. Correct? Let's say you want to buy a Tally software. Everybody's heard about Tally as an accounting software, correct? Standalone accounting software. Can you go and buy Tally out of an Amazon? Can you go buy Tally? You can buy Tally from Tally, right? But you can't buy Tally from a third party. Emergence of software selling on platform is the new wave. Why? Because software in any case is supposed to connect. Softwares today are platform-oriented design. Most softwares are SaaS, as you know. The on-prem software versions are gradually declining. Everything is up on the cloud. Now, with the emergence of that trend, you should be able to buy from the cloud. Why should you have to go and ask a vendor to come up and show a demo and therefore go and buy it from him offline? So I see the biggest trend, and where it's very sublime or very, I would say, volumetrically very low, software sales on platforms are going to get huge leg up. On the B2C side, I think product visualization through virtual reality is going to be a very, very important driver for consumer trust. Already some of the housing companies or companies which sell real estate are using AR and VR for selling real estate solutions. But we do not see that for other products. For example, when you buy a mobile phone, imagine if you had a virtual reality led demo or augmented reality led demo for the phone that you're buying. Wouldn't you feel much better? Right or wrong?
Right, sir.
Correct. And that probably would take away a community like me who would see the product and check the price on the marketplace, digital marketplace, and yet go to a retail store, muhalle ka retail store, and negotiate hard with that, small trader कि भाई Amazon में 500 रुपया डिस्काउंट आपसे ज्यादा दे रहे हैं, आप उतना मेरे को दो, मैं आपसे लूं. So I'd go and buy from him, but make that trader's life miserable and his margins completely knocked off, and because I'm able to touch it there, right? Now, that is the future of B2C platforms, where product visualization is going to get people to take instant decisions as opposed to protracted, prolonged decision-making process. मोबाइल फोन जैसे चीजों में आप एक बार देखते हो, 2 बार दुकान जाते हो, तीसरे बार आके आप खरीदते हो. Now, platforms would like to stop that because the cycle time for purchase and actualization, they would like to crunch by having this visual demo using modern technology. In specific sectors like fintech, insurance, used assets or lifestyle products. Already you can see Cars24 and various other car trading platforms, fintech platforms, lifestyle platforms. I invested in a few companies which are into lifestyle platforms. So they make you wear Manish Malhotra clothes for a particular day in your life, correct? At a throwaway price. So you could flaunt a Manish Malhotra designed tuxedo, let's say. And say, I have worn a Manish Malhotra, which I can't afford, but for this special day, I've worn it. And they would keep it prim and proper, ship it to you, and you can get it back to them without having to have the fear that it is a second-hand cloth. Okay, such lifestyle kind of trends are coming in the millennials, which all of you know. So. Artificial intelligence, a lot of these things are happening. I'll give you an example. I was searching for a trip in Mussoorie. Okay. Once I searched for a trip in Mussoorie, every time I'd go to Facebook thereafter, all hotels in Mussoorie would pop up. You must have seen this, right? How does it happen? It happens because many of these back-end platforms, search platforms, social media platforms today are sharing intelligence about consumer behaviors, what they're looking to buy, etc. And therefore, this is also going to be one of the significant props for B2C marketplace adoption and transaction. Supply chains are evolving, and we see that with more and more e-commerce, supply chain is going to also evolve, and supply chain is going to evolve from the.
Can I just say for 1 minute, Parikshit? I think we have to little bit fast actually, because only few slides are there and almost 15 minutes, close to 5 also here.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. That's what I'm saying. What I'll do is I'll leave the balance because they are pretty straightforward. I'll spend time on India Mart because that is something which probably you would get more excitement in. So let me finish the next two slides and I'll jump into that. And the rest, I think it's pretty straightforward from what I've tried to convey. But if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy. So let's move to. So one of the important characteristics in B2B and B2C marketplaces, which helps you to distinguish it, is how does the B2C and B2B marketplaces today distinguished? Payment frequency and value. So as you all know, common sense, B2C payment frequencies are far higher and the value of tickets are lower. Digitization and tech complexity in B2C is far complex, given the fact that a multitude of personas come to this platform, interact, and consume these products. Omni-channel versus multi-channel, we have discussed a little while back that in the B2C marketplaces are predominantly omni-channel because they're more evolved on channel markets as opposed to B2B, which is progressively moving to omni-channel but is largely multi-channel. Persona, various kinds of people interact in a B2C, whereas in a B2B you'll have only a type of customers using the platform. Yeah, let's move. Scale, scale is one distinguishing parameter between B2C and B2B, and I think you can read what is mentioned here, that transaction volumes, number of SKUs, visits, fulfillment, CRM, transactions, mails, reports, B2C definitely hogs more transactions. Language and socio-economic consideration. B2B channels, you can do it in one or two type of languages or a couple of standard frameworks. But as far as B2C are concerned, you have to be sensitive to social, religious sensitivities and also make sure that your customers are able to transact because of that. Procure to pay, P2P cycle is significantly longer in the B2B because it undergoes trial, delivery shipment times are longer. So P2P is a little longer in B2B, whereas in B2C it's quick and fast. Legal compliance, I think the legal compliance piece is where the B2B marketplace is currently working at to make sure that the commercial and the legal consumer rights in like in B2C, those are not very consistent. So they're not industry agnostic. Every industry has different kind of legal frameworks. Every country has different kind of legal framework. So how do you linearize that to bring in consistency? So these are a couple of distinguishing parameters between B2C and B2B marketplaces, and we need to be sensitive of that. And that's where you will find, very interestingly, I'll conclude this slide, that Amazon is so successful in B2C, but they are still not very sure about their B2B foray because of these distinguishing parameters. B2B is not an easy business, and companies which are in B2B would largely get stuck to one zone, one region, and can't be globally present like the B2C marketplace. Yeah, let's move. Yeah, I'll skip this slide, Sandeep. I'll skip this. But only thing I want to say, look at the number of kind of satellites. You will find in B2C very simple process, transaction process from start to finish. More circles. Actually, I've simplified it further. There could be a few more satellites. So complexity of transaction between buying interest to buying is far more in B2B, and some of these legends will tell you how it is different. Let's move. Let's move. I'm not going to really spend time, but I'm going to talk about these three broad headlines. The B2B commerce platform as on date, as I said, convenience as a platform is the emergence and which I see the future. But as we speak, there are three kinds of B2B platforms. Supplier-oriented marketplace, which is e-distribution. Then there are buyer-oriented marketplace, which is e-procurement. And the third is intermediary-oriented marketplace, which is e-exchange. These are the three different kinds of B2B platform that you will generally find. There are exceptions, but if you really cluster them into these would be the three buckets. The explanation is given here because of paucity of time. I'm not going through it, but you can read, and if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah, let's move.
So just one query I have. So this is, you are saying that first one is the supplier oriented. That means that many buyers and few suppliers. So how these two are different, buyer oriented and supplier oriented. Buyer oriented is specifically for one buyer, like one company, Tata does it for its own, something like that.
Yeah. So you will see the example. If you read a successful example of a buyer-oriented marketplace is GE's electronic bidding site.
Okay.
So it is run by GE. It's not run by many people. Look at the top. On the
Okay.
top, whereas supplier-oriented marketplace is a Dell marketplace. Okay. So here, GE is going to both buy and sell in that platform. So GE is asking suppliers to log in and register themselves so that they can be considered as their component supplier or any critical supply partner. Whereas on the other side, it is e-distribution. That means Dell, Cisco wanting to sell to many, one to many. Okay. Here it is buyer-oriented marketplace means GE is inviting those suppliers to come, kind of qualify and be a part of the registered GE supply chain. Okay. So in this model, there are fewer buyers. When I say fewer buyers, in this case, there's only one buyer and many suppliers. Okay. How many of you heard about an e-procurement platform called Ariba? Anybody heard this?
Yeah, we have heard.
Yeah, you've heard about it.
Yeah.
So Ariba is one kind of e-procurement platform. So Ariba doesn't buy, but Ariba facilitates multiple suppliers to converge onto their platform for one customer to buy, right? And the third is intermediary oriented, which is basically the e-exchange, what we talked about in the earlier.
So basically, third one is the real platform. The first one is more like a extra channel actually to sell.
But Sandeep, these channels are gaining much more popularity.
Yeah.
Because many companies are going to go into e-distribution completely or largely as opposed to physical distribution.
Yes. So it's more like their omni-channel or multi-channel strategy.
Yes, Sandeep. Yes. So B2B commerce, I consider all these three formats emerging. You can't say only the marketplace is going to emerge. Marketplace is definitely no-brainer; it will emerge. But the other formats of these commerce are going to be also significantly gaining traction. Why I'm saying is some of your students will be future business managers. They must understand that what would work for their company. So in their company, they could have two platforms that they are delving with. One could be for their own marketplace, and one could be where they want to use a large marketplace for selling some types of their products. Yeah, let's move because we are really short of time.
We can take little bit extra. I think that is okay because the topic is interesting. We can go a little bit ahead if you are okay with that also.
No, I am perfectly okay. These are all passionate topics of mine. So, so again, from a construct point of view, that is from the transaction point. From a construct point of view, I call it a vertical marketplace. Now, I just mentioned a few slides back, commodity market. Okay? So there are certain marketplaces which will only talk about certain types of commodities, cement, steel, torsion bars, or stuff like that, correct? Which go into the construction industry. Or there are even marketplaces for metals, various kinds of metals. Okay. So these are called vertical marketplaces. So I for one use a marketplace which is in Taiwan. As you know, Taiwan is a very, very popular destination for electronic component, correct? So there is a website in Taiwan which only deals with various kinds of semiconductors and transistors. Correct. That's their only claim to fame. They are not into any other products. So if you have to go to Taiwan and look for the supply chain from Taiwan instead of Google searching, which will take you several days, several weeks, you go to that website. There's listing. You pay them a small sum of money, and you know exactly who could be your potential supplier. And they have kind of rated each of the suppliers as a part of their evaluation process. So these are called vertical B2B plays. Horizontal B2B plays are where you could do multiple sectors. Now, it could be a marketplace, it need not be a marketplace. I'll give you an example. Now, when I say a marketplace means multiple categories, multiple SKUs, multiple product lines, multiple solutions, multiple services. Horizontal B2B marketplace could be an amalgamation of 3 sector verticals, meaning what I said just a little while back on a vertical market. Now, what means, so to elucidate my point, I'll explain. So let's say you bought 2 tons of steel from that commodity market, the metal commodity market, or I have bought 100 pieces of semiconductor from the Taiwanese marketplace, which is a vertical market, correct? Am I able to communicate? Any questions? Pause me, like Sandeep paused me. Okay. Now I do not know what is the best way to ship it to India, right? So the same website has another vertical which is called logistics. That means whatever you buy, there are some logistic partners who are also qualified to carry your consignment from the factory in case the factory doesn't ship themselves. So they collect from the factory, the platform administers them, and they deliver it to your factory or to your manufacturing location. Okay. The horizontal B2B marketplace could be multi-SKU, which is like a marketplace, or could be adjacent solutions like a vertical marketplace, like means that you bought and you also have a solution to get it delivered. Any questions?
Yeah, maybe student, you have any questions so far you can ask.
I will give you an example. Udaan has tied up with Rivigo. How many of you have heard about Rivigo?
Everybody, because we have a role
Everyone,
play
sir.
with Rivigo. Everyone, we had a
Yes.
case on Rivigo.
So you had a case on Rivigo. So just to tell you that they are working now together, you'll find them now going to be on a kind of a adjacent platform. So if people buy certain consignments which are heavy and they don't have to search and scratch their head, Rivigo will pick it up at a cost and deliver. So you have an adjacency. You bought something, you know how to get it shipped. The same concept is the horizontal marketplace. So horizontal marketplace could be a general marketplace or adjacent marketplaces to the vertical where you are connected. Yeah. So what are
Sir,
the
I have-
challenges in the B2B?
I have
Yeah,
couple
go
of
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Questions
Yeah,
if
I
you
have
have.
a couple of questions. Should I ask now or later, sir?
I will finish. So I would just jot it down and please
Sure.
ask me all
It will be
questions.
better.
I would,
Yes, sir.
I'll finish and then maybe you will have some more on the next few slides. Yeah.
Done,
So
sir.
what are the challenges in the B2B market that one is seeing? B2B markets predominantly across the world are still multi-channel. They are not omni-channel. Why is it? Because technology investments in seamlessly connecting multi-channel to omni-channel, the organizations are waking up to the reality. I think this COVID, this pandemic is making them understand that when people couldn't come to office and when you are hearing this hybrid work that I may or may not come to work, how would the sales and the marketing people go and continue to sell as per the volume commitments that these organizations have made? Correct? So you'll find that today many organizations would now start stitching up their multi-channel network to the omni-channel model. And once they do that, B2B platforms will be far more successful. Another important problem for B2B platforms that I have seen personally is enterprise procurement processes and control. Without getting to the name of a company, this is a very large global 5-star restaurant, hotel, very, very large. And they run some of the iconic hotels in the country and across the world. So their managing director or their Asia Pacific head and I were talking, and they said we failed, Parikshit, to drive a common procurement process. And why they failed is every procurement manager in their country or in each hotel came up with obstacles which did not help them linearize or create a uniform procurement strategy and uniform procurement terms. Okay. So today, this whole community of whom you call procurement managers are also standing in the way for their organizations to become into a marketplace, a digital marketplace, because in such a case, some of them may not have their job. You can understand. So there is this tug of war which is going on, that enterprise procurement processes are very rigid. Some of these organizations don't want to change, and therefore They do not want a third element, which is the marketplace, whether it's a vertical or a horizontal marketplace, B2B marketplace, to tell them what to buy and what is the best thing to buy. Adoption challenge. Some of these decision makers are concerned about the fact that changing their traditional in-house procurement strategy and letting it go to a third party, which is outside, which is a platform, is going to be slightly risky. So they do not want to, and they have been enjoying some unique terms and conditions. So I'll give you an example. I used to represent Honeywell. There is this particular company who used to be a fairly large buyer of Honeywell products in this country. And unfortunately, and many of you will know because you had work experience, that some of your preferred customer, you give what is called a preferred customer terms and conditions, correct? Now, in a platform, you don't get it. Every preferred customer gets same terms. So many customers are not wanting to come to platform because they are already enjoying some unique and preferred terms from their traditional transaction process. And for them to go to a B2B platform may not help. The last is secure payment services. In B2B, because you are not meeting the customer, to recover your money, to recover your payment upon delivery or upon placing an order, upon manufacturing, upon shipment, sometimes is not guaranteed. Unlike in a B2C platform where you pay and then only the supplier delivers it to your doorstep. Here, there are deferred payments because nobody would pay 100% off against an order. So recovery of the residual payments in the whole sales cycle sometimes is tricky. And there is still some work that these platforms need to do to securitize the payment for the seller from the buyer. Sandeep, let's move. Confidentiality and lack of trust. How do you not, I mean, I have heard several general managers of procurement who work with me or who have worked with me saying, sir, how do we ensure that the terms and conditions by which we are buying, if we buy it on a platform, that confidentiality will not be leaked or that confidentiality will not be shared with my competition? Fair point. I think the platforms still don't have a solution per se on that. So serious purchases are still not happening. Transactions, spares, small ticket items, regularly bought items, yes, there is a significant traction. Supply chain maturity. While handling a consignment which could be 1 feet by 6 inches is very easy to handle and deliver to the last mile, till the doorstep. Supply chain maturity for a larger, bulky consignment in a B2B environment is not easy. And there aren't too many solutions right now there. Okay. Now, once you have a last mile maturity from a delivery standpoint, I think more traction. And this is one of the reasons why there is a degree of adoption challenges. Commercial terms and conditions. Every customer wants unique terms and conditions. So they don't want to be driven by a standard terms of condition, which the platform makes them to sign on. One of the challenges, especially in India, in adoption of, do you know that Japanese customers never want to buy like this? And I'll come to that in your Q&A, that why they don't want to buy like this. Yeah. We will quickly, I think this is a very lengthy side, but what are the platform strategies? Please read for yourself. There isn't any gyan I can't share, but primarily what will drive the operating principles, positioning strategy, participation. Sandeep, let's move because I want to spend little time. Data monetization, how does this data, as I mentioned, that many of you think that Amazon doesn't charge, but Amazon charges you on Prime. But how does Amazon recover money other than onboarding? Yes, we all know that Amazon makes money in onboarding suppliers. But how does Amazon make more money? Amazon is making more money or would progressively make more money on data monetization. And many of the data that they currently have, their mining and their data analyzing it to sell it to social media. So many of your social media platforms would know exactly what you, and this is what I call pervasive computing. So the generation of pervasive computing because of connected platforms are emerging and emerging thick and fast. So if you bought something very interesting and you know that Google would get to know it. And therefore, when you next time Google, there could be an ad popping up. I'll give you an example. I was looking for, my company works on GCP, Google Cloud Platform. And I was looking for some cloud security solutions. So I landed up with a company called Securinix, correct? So every time I open the NDTV website, Securinix banner pops up on the top, correct? Now, that is a reflection of data monetization, which probably Google is doing with their, which we all know. So data monetization is going to be another next level of journey for most platforms, that they would need to know where they would get this money to run their business and run profitably. So that's the second part of their journey, what I think most platform companies are trying to get better at. Yeah. Let's move this slide. I mean, we'll talk about it if time. So I'm going to talk about IndiaMart, guys. And this is an interesting part because, as I said, a little over a year, I worked with Dinesh Agarwal, and his cousin Brijesh Agarwal. This company is a 23-year-old company. So many of you followed IndiaMart and Just Dial. I think two of the most important names before Uran came in the picture. They formed the company in 1996 when e-commerce or digital platforms or marketplaces were not at all popular. Yeah, the company evolved, and you can ask me questions. I'll explain where they started and how they started. As we speak, very interesting, they command 60% of the B2B India market. And this is a study not by them or a self-declaration. This is a study for all of you students, and that this is done by KPMG. So I have a complete study on IndiaMart by KPMG. Very interestingly, they have 97,000 SKUs on their platform. And I'm coming to that, how they're better than all others and probably some of their foreign counterparts in curating these SKUs. Another part of the story, which all of you know, that IndiaMart went public. They had an IPO, 36 times oversubscribed after 20 odd years, which is reflective of the fact that they had matured leadership and no pressure to really go public. And honestly, they were the first B2B platform company to become public. Just to tell you, I mean, before I really delve into the unknown facts of IndiaMart. So from 2017, I have the statistics virtually all year, but I'm starting with 2017, which will make this discussion relevant. 2017, they had 32,000 unique visitors in their website or their platform every year. In 2020, this has gone up to close to 90 crores. So you can see how in a matter of 3.5 odd years, they have rapidly jumped. In 2019, at that level, they had a 500 crore turnover. And very interestingly, Sandeep and your students, they were a truly profitable company. They have free cash flows for last 5 years, and they have accumulated cash in their balance sheet, which I must say that many of these largely funded unicorns in the e-commerce space still may not be able to see in the next 10 years. Another interesting data point, they have about 8,30,000 registered buyers, moments of truth, registered buyers, 8,30,000 registered buyers Dropout rate is less than 12%. So out of this, every year they see a shakeout of 12%. New people come out, old people move out. But interestingly, for supporting 90 crore visits and transactions, as I had mentioned, they have 55 lakh suppliers only. Okay, this is where the conversation becomes interesting. So why is IndiaMart successful? What made them succeed and many other marketplaces continue to struggle, even in the B2C space, which is supposedly a more interesting space? Three facts, and this is my personal inference. Fact one, IndiaMart follows one of the most technologically advanced product discovery and onboarding process. Now, what is product discovery? Onboarding, everybody understands. So before they onboard a supplier on their platform, the discovery process is more technology-led than manual. Number one. This product discovery, very interestingly, in case of IndiaMart, is natural language processing enabled. Now you may say, what is natural processing language enabled procurement process all about? I'll give you an example. IndiaMart's 33% of the traffic in the last year came from tier 3, tier 4 cities. Okay. 55 of their customers come back to the platform every 90 days. Just process these data in your mind. 33% of their traffic comes from tier 3, tier 4 cities, and 55% of their customers, which is the same traffic, revisits them every 90 days and ends up buying something. Now, what is this natural language processing capability in product discovery all about? So what they do is they ask all their suppliers, especially suppliers from tier 3, tier 4 cities, or the smaller suppliers, to speak in their local language as to how they need to describe the product and the uniqueness, or what we call in business terms value proposition of the product. So they give a slot, they have a set of questionnaires, and the owner or the entrepreneur who runs the business, they ask them to answer these on a live show. The entrepreneur doesn't know that he gets recorded, like Sandeep disclosed that he is recording me. And during that conversation, there is a NLP-led, AI-led, ML-led algorithmic match. So there is a matchmaking process while this question answer sessions goes on, that the technology tool that IndiaMart adopts is helping them understand that whether from a value, trust, track record, performance, quality, and most importantly, reliability point of view, whether this guy would fit the bill. So like many of you have heard about tech helping interview sessions. Many of you have heard about that, right? This is a technology which IndiaMart is using for last 7 years. Obviously, they're evolving this technology. And in the process, they're curating good businesses, reliable businesses, reasonably strong businesses, maybe unknown businesses, to really come onto their platform. And this whole pattern of their recognition of the supply chain is one of the hallmarks of reliability of transaction on IndiaMart, which has got customers back on their platform every 90 days to buy something or that. Right? So to sum up, we have relied heavily on technology for customer satisfaction, product search, product reliability, and product onboard. One interesting anecdote, unlike many B2B companies, IndiaMart still today does not have a logistic commitment. So they do not guarantee any logistics. They don't want to get into logistics. The simple answer is logistics in B2B is complex, and therefore they prefer that the buyer and seller to sort out amongst themselves how they want the product to be delivered. They are a matchmaker, correct? And in the process, they have stayed clear of what they call a complex side of B2B transaction. So much so because I can see that we are already at around 5:15, clearly overshot the time. I'm really regretful of the time that I couldn't manage it. Any questions in the next couple of minutes? I'll be more than happy. I pause here.
I
There were a
think
few questions, but I couldn't.
Tarun, you had few questions.
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. Good evening. I am Tarun. I have 9 years of experience in B2B sales in IT, and we are doing a group project under Sandeep sir guidance only regarding the emergence of B2B marketplace. So most of the points were cleared, and one of the key takeaway was first was that it's a business model, and secondly, what you rightly pointed out, there are many buyer personas, different personas we are catering to on a particular platform. Two questions particularly I have. Uh, what do you think the platform are suitable for a specific industry or specific firm size, like small, medium, or large enterprise? Which industry it is suitable?
No, you need to
I think he's asking that whether
you need to re-articulate your question. I couldn't get that.
I think what he's saying that this platform is more suitable for small industries, large industry, medium industry, or some specific industry like chemical industry, manufacturing industry, IT industry, or is it equally good for all types of industry and all size of industry, something like that?
Right, sir.
Yeah. Very interesting question, but very difficult question. Difficult because this platform-based B2B commerce would flourish where there is liberalized commercial policies from the procurement managers. Bear in mind, you sell, somebody buys. The whole matchmaking can work whether the buyer is also willing to accept your terms and accept the fact that he would agree to buy through a platform. Okay. Now we see that largely technology companies have a better appetite for using platform-based procurements. Okay. So for example, in India, there are 58,000 plus, this is a dated information, Ariba reverse auction instances. Okay. So Ariba uses this platform, and most of the Ariba customers in this country are other multinational corporations or very large tech companies of Indian origin, like the Infosys and the Wipros of the world. It is therefore my short answer to your very complex question, but an interesting question is, in the Indian environment, if I use my experience of how buying and selling takes place, technology companies would be probably better off buying through a platform. Traditional businesses would not buy from a platform so quickly. They may buy, but only small ticket, low value, regular items. It is actually the MSME which is actually the most fertile sector, irrespective whether it's a tech company or a non-tech MSME, where I think adoption levels are going to be significantly high. Please bear in mind, MSME contributes to more than 60% of the Indian's GDP, correct? And it is a much overlooked sector. So smaller entrepreneurs are far more flexible, their procurement teams far more agile, and therefore I see tech companies on one side of the spectrum, MSMEs on the other side of the spectrum, most likely to look at B2B platforms as their procurement or their natural procurement, kind of backyard going forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And sir, the last question was how does this platform makes money from VAS, or they work on percentage per transaction?
Yeah, good question again. Platform, various companies have various ways of making money. Initially, IndiaMart, I know IndiaMart, and therefore I'm saying again and again IndiaMart. I know a bit of Udaan, but not as much as IndiaMart. IndiaMart initially would not even take money to onboard. They would only take money as a advertisement, digital advertisement kind of a rack rate. But today, many companies make money in onboarding the successful suppliers on their platform, and these are annual subscription. Some companies, I forgot to tell you, very interesting, but which you must know. India Mart also does lead generation, which many of you may not know. India Mart has about 30 odd percent of their revenue, again, may not be current, but few years back, coming from lead generation. So for the same companies which may not have a strong sales and marketing team, but they have hosted their solution, service, product on IndiaMart, IndiaMart could help them with their lead generation or lead management service, which is another way they found a meaningful way to make those products sell on the platform and also to give them, kind of sales and marketing, real-time sales and marketing support. So it could be very innovative revenue streams that every company. The very straightforward answer is onboarding cost is one way of these platforms can get money. And the second is additional value-added services like lead generation that you may do on behalf of the sellers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Other questions? Arpan, you have any questions? Because I think you have a unique background from.
Yeah, sir. Actually, I have a question. Like, there are some particular B2B platforms like Kisan Trade and all, who are mainly.
I'm not able to hear you. You have to be a little louder. I'm not able to hear you.
Is it audible now clearly?
Yes, much better.
Yeah, my question is, sir, there are particular B2B. Arpan Bhattacharjee. Arpan Bhattacharjee.
Yes.
So my question is, there are particular B2B platforms like Kisan Trade, AgriImp, they are catering to the agricultural industry. However, we don't see those platforms coming up really in front of the in the limelight, or people don't have much idea, or they are not known to most of the people. So sir, do you I mean, just wanted to know that whether those platforms are doing well or not, or do they have any future
Many
kind
of
of
their
thing?
platforms, there are many more. I don't want to take names because that's not the right way to do it. Many unknown, mid-sized. How many of you did know about all that I spoke of India Mart till now? Be honest.
Sir, new one.
So
Almost
many
none.
of us, even me, before I, kind of got to know Dinesh Agarwal, I wasn't aware about his company. I wasn't aware that Dinesh Agarwal was an entrepreneur, computer science engineer, worked in HCL, worked in TCS, worked in CMC, lived in America, but was a Marwari. And he said that Parikshit, did not want to take venture fund because I said कि लोगों के पैसा क्यों ले? So for 7 years, he did not borrow money. On the 12th year, he first got some funding from Intel. So coming back, there are many mid-sized unknown B2B sector funds, as I call it, vertical sectors. If you saw my slide, they're doing tremendous money. So some of these agri platforms, how they make money? They don't ask the Kisan or the farmers to pay money to onboard. They don't. Mostly they don't. Some may. They take a percentage of the revenue that they generate. So they said, if you make money, we will make money with you.
Transaction.
So it's transaction based. So as I said, there are multiple models. It depends on the social sector. It depends on the type of industry. It depends on how you want to break the industry. So there are certain commerce platforms which are not going to make money for next 4 years, 5 years. They're going to be hugely funded, but they're breaking stereotypes in their sectors.
Yes, sir. These are like they're doing it, but most of us don't even come to know what is happening. That is the thing.
But tell me, do we do business to be known? No. We make business to make profit and make our shareholders happy.
Right.
And in the process, if we are known, that's good. But I think that's a misnomer which I can tell you after 34 years. Get that demon out of your head.
Right, sir.
You don't do business to be known. You need to do business to make money. And in the process, if somebody knows you, that's a bonus.
Right, sir. Agreed, sir. Yes.
Okay. I just have one question. You just mentioned that IndiaMart does matchmaking between the buyer and seller.
Yes,
So how did you stop in future if the buyer and seller they start communicating with each other and they just bypass the platform? So all the future business, the IndiaMart would have no stake. So what is the thing that IndiaMart basically locked them in their platform?
excellent. So that's why you would see that most of, and you, if you would have observed what data points I shared during the conversation, that 33% of the traffic, which is 1/3 of their customers, are from tier 3, tier 4 cities. Okay,
Okay.
which means that they are either small or marginal or medium-sized trading companies or manufacturing companies or organizations. Now, these chances of bypassing a platform and then going, yes, it can happen. The question here is, IndiaMart is becoming a preferred partner. So why am I saying preferred partner? Because preferred partner is through the fact that they are knowing the customers who would buy from that company, if they do the lead, far better than the company that they know. Correct? So if that company bypasses them, they would have 2 or 3 more other shortlisted companies to compete with that company from that same region, whom they can quickly onboard and start promoting them. So the counter-offensive measure of IndiaMart could be that, let's say, Parikshit ditches Sandeep, and Sandeep here is IndiaMart, and such human behaviors are not unknown. Sandeep knows their other natural competition of Parikshit in the same city, same region, or same area, and he can onboard them and start countering. So these are, yeah, this do happen, but I think they have built credibility, trust, and most importantly, partnership.
Yeah.
So Mr. Dinesh told me that there is a company from Ranchi. Now they were supplying some helical gears to some heavy engineering companies, and they barely had a turnover of about 3 crores when they came to India Mart. And they not only listed them, and they listed them free of cost because they felt that they had potential, and Mr. Dinesh invested in his company in his own personal capacity and ran their lead management program, Sandeep, for more than 7 years. Now, that company, I believe, is now about 26, 27 crore company, has an all India market, and more importantly, it has also used IndiaMart to go to some adjacent countries. Now, therefore, they became a natural partner, and he says, I have hundreds of such partners who would swear by IndiaMart.
Yeah.
So they recently lodged a complaint to Delhi High Court, and I think it is still under litigation, that some other website, I don't want to name them, which was doing exactly, Sandeep, what you said. So they said, if you are on IndiaMart, you are successful, I will launch you on my platform free of cost. They went there, and they went there, getting incited. And IndiaMart promptly went to the court, and the court debarred the other trading company to, take certain kinds of commercial benefits, what probably they complained to the court for. So anyway, I am saying that such things do happen, but they are more exceptions than rule.
Yeah, like we do not go out of urban, even we do know the plumber and others still like
Absolutely,
to call
Sandeep.
through the urban only. I think.
Absolutely, Sandeep.
I think thanks a lot. I think for taking so much of time. Subi, are you there? Okay, Santosh.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Subi, can you say thanks on behalf of the students so we can conclude?
Sure, sir, sure. Thank you so much, Roy, sir, for your time. Really means a lot for this informative session, and we're looking forward for more such association with you.
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than glad. And maybe I also mentor a lot of students like you in other parts of the country, including engineering institutions. So maybe a small LinkedIn reference is what will help me to connect with them and maybe connect some of you to them. So I really appreciate Sandeep for you setting this up, and I'd love to do more such sessions with your team and your future batches on emerging topics like this, and I look forward. I thank you for your patience and for your time over a weekend.
No, thanks for your time. You spend so much of time with us over a weekend. Thanks a lot. I think it's very insightful.
Thank you
So,
very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.